Welcome back to the 3x5 Life podcast. On this podcast, we talk about wellness, well-being, mindfulness, gratitude, productivity, all the things. This week, I am flying solo. Bryan and I once again had a really hard time matching our schedules up. And so I thought that I would take just a moment to riff on some content, ideas, topics, thoughts that have been swirling for me since last time we checked in. And the topic that I'm going to unpack with you guys today is the idea of mobility. So if you know me and my background, you know that I'm a certified yoga teacher. I have always loved moving my body. I always loved to dance. I love to stretch. I love yoga. I've played competitive sports. I'm currently playing tennis a lot. Movement for me is a form of mental health and just physical feeling great in my body. So I was listening to a podcast actually on my way down. I was taking my two kiddos solo to the beach. I was listening to a podcast and they started to talk about this topic of mobility. And it was an interesting switch to the way that I digest movement, because mobility, per this definition, was having access to all of your native movements and being able to access them pain-free. So when I started to look into what native movements meant, this podcast also talked a lot about native moving, but wilding your movement. So if you look back to our ancestors and how much more mobility they had, if you look at places like the blue zones, who these people are living these really full lives, but they're living these long lives pain-free, which I don't know about you, but longevity is really important to Bryan and I. We try to make choices today that are going to allow us to feel good for as long as we possibly can. The goal for us is to be able to run around the backyard with our kids, throw our kids up in the air, be able to do sports with them, be able to hold our grandkids, pick our grandkids up, travel. So we need those native ranges of motion that are really important to us feeling pain-free for as long as possible. So this thought of mobility and looking at all of the things that are against us in this category, especially in the United States. Our furniture, our homes, our environments are all engineered for comfort and ease. So you think about like where our light switches and our thermostats are. Everything's at eye level. Your couches are meant to be cushiony and you sit down on them. Our chairs, we sit in chairs all the time, right? So we're not squatting down. We're not reaching up. We're not using these natural muscles that are used when we have more intuitive movement. Even our toilets, I was thinking about this the other day, our toilets are now made that where they're taller. So that actually is not great for digestion. Our toilets, when they used to be like shorter, our colon actually needs that angle in order to have a bowel movement. So if you ever suffer from constipation, that's why the squatty potty, that little stool thing, was invented, because people were having trouble pushing their poop out. So looking at even the modern convenience of a higher toilet and how that gets away from natural movements of squatting. So in other countries that do have these areas called blue zones, which we've covered before, like even looking at Japan, Okinawa, for example, their furniture, if you go to a hotel room in Japan, they actually have hotel rooms that they book for Americans specifically. And then there's certain hotels that have hotel rooms that are for the Japanese population. And if you go into one of those hotel rooms, the beds are on the floor. The shower, you actually sit down sometimes like crisscross applesauce in the shower. The thermostat is towards the ground. Everything requires you to get into that position where you're either squatting on the ground or sitting on the ground and being able to get up without support. There are so many people who can't do that range of motion where you're sitting on the floor and you get yourself up without some type of like handrail or railing or someone pulling us up. And that range of motion as you get older, that's how you get hip injuries, or that's how you get knee injuries, or, pains in your ankles or your shoulders. So my suggestion for today, and just kind of what I've been thinking about a lot, is what are some ways that we can increase our mobility? Because this is something that's accessible to anybody. Like I think, one of the things they talk about, even the motion of being able to take your luggage and be able to put it up like in an airplane in like the overhead compartment, or again, being able to get on the floor and get back up, being able to bend over and pick something up and bring it back up, being able to bend your hips, sit crisscross applesauce. It's really hard for a lot of men because of that hip flexor muscle. So that mobility is accessible to everybody, but it does require some care and practice. If you can include it intuitively, meaning like you sit on the floor maybe when you watch TV instead of the couch and allow yourself to get up and down, or you do try to lift some type of weight or do some type of mobility where you're creating some movement, where you're picking something up and then lifting it up above your head. This intuitive form of movement can work wonders, they say, on creating this longevity snowball effect where the mobility allows you to live longer pain-free. I did want to share with you a couple of movements that I know to really help with this. This morning, I went to a hot yoga class. I tend to go on Tuesday mornings at 6 a.m. And I start the class and I am so stiff. My first downward dog always feels so icky. Like I'm, trying to pedal it out, but my muscles are just like, this is not working. And by the end of it, because of the combination of the heat and then its sustained stretches, I feel so good and my body feels so good. And doing motions like that helps me with everything else I do. It helps me with tennis. It helps me with being able to walk into town. It helps me with being able to lift a weight. So it all ties back together and you cannot go wrong with strengthening your mobility. I just wanted to give you like 5 simple exercises that you could try to support this. One of them would be just like an assisted deep squat. So I love a good yoga squat. If you don't know what that is, it's literally just squatting down and using your knees, your elbows against your knees to help just do like a squat, like butt goes towards the ground, feels really great. If that's too much, start with just like using the wall or a bar or a piece of furniture and just giving yourself that assisted deep squat where you're just feeling the motion where your bottom goes below your hips, and then allowing yourself to stand up and then go back down and hold it for maybe like a minute and then stand back up. Another great one is a quad stretch into a down dog. So if you're on all fours in the ground and you move your hips back towards your feet and then you lift up into that downward dog so that you have that upside down V, going from that squat up to the downward dog and the squat up to the downward dog. That's great for your hips. Again, that's great for the back of your legs. It's great for your calf muscles. So it's giving you that elongation in your muscles and increasing that mobility. Cat-cow too, while you're down there on all fours, is an awesome one. This is great for your spine. How often, I was actually thinking about this in yoga the other day, there's no natural movement that we do throughout the day where we truly stretch our spines. When you're in cat-cow and you're doing that motion where you are creating a C curve, you're dropping your belly so you create like a C curve, that curvature in our spine and then pressing it away so that it goes up into like I say like a Halloween cat. That motion of back and forth is like a massage to your spine. And listen, our spines are pretty important and it's a body part that probably could utilize some more love and support. And then another one that I do a lot is the Spider-Man lunges. And you can do this right into pigeon pose, which is a great hip opener too. But the Spider-Man lunge would be, you would go back into kind of like a plank and then take your right leg and put your right foot next to your right hand. So it's that elongated lunge, but it's a little bit wide. So your right foot is wider than your right hand. Stay there, or you can even drop your left knee and create that nice stretch in your hips. This also is a great lead into pigeon pose. Sometimes I do the Spider-Man lunge first and then I put it into pigeon pose, or any other type of fire log or yoga pose that could really help with your hips. I was going to try to do these on the video to demonstrate them, but I think I might actually put pictures up in the show notes so that you can see these 5 exercises. But I want you to think a little bit about this idea of mobility. I want you to think about how, if you have one form of movement that you tend to gravitate towards, like CrossFit or HIIT workouts or Orange Theory or any of these that we kind of like find out that we love and we just like pour into it, I want you to think about maybe becoming more of a generalist in your movements. So maybe once a week, pick up a yoga class, maybe do a Pilates class, which is great for our core muscles. Our core muscles are so important for being able to get up and down, right? Try naturally finding ways to squat on the floor. Sometimes, if you're going to sit and watch TV, I always say make it active. Like sit on the ground and do a couple stretches. Do some static stretching while you're sitting there on the floor. Try to avoid the traps of just melting into our furniture and creating that sedentary lifestyle. Try to find ways to naturally move so that we can live a pain-free, really long, healthy life. That's all I got for you. I hope that you have a great week, and we will catch you next time. Take care.
We are all